If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm Katherine Hansen, your host, and I'm so glad you joined me today. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, I'm the author of 2 books on binge eating recovery, Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide. On this podcast, I primarily focus on helping you end binge eating, but I also like to bring you a variety of topics related to food, weight, and health that may go beyond binge eating recovery itself, but the topics could be related to recovery in some ways for you, and they can also help you as you work on learning to eat in a way that works for you. Today's show addresses the science behind gut health and its connection to mental health, which is such a fascinating area to explore, and I know that learning about this will benefit you as you heal your body and mind. I have a guest on the show today who is an expert on this topic and who talks about the gut health-mental health connection in a way that does not promote restriction and also focuses on the enjoyment of food. My guest is Marc Washington. He's the founder of Supergut, which is a company that focuses on helping people harness the power of their gut microbiome so that they can improve their nutrition and lead healthy lives. Before we jump into the conversation with Marc, I want to share a quick announcement, which is that I'm going to be hosting an online event this month called the 2-Hour Course, which I also did back in March if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. And I'm really excited to offer this again because it's a way to streamline the Brain Over Binge course into 2 hours and give you a concise roadmap to a binge-free life, as well as provide the opportunity to ask questions and talk to me about overcoming your specific challenges. The event will be on Monday, July 17th from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can sign up at brainoverbinge.com/webinar. And I'll also give you some more details at the end of this show. And now I'll go ahead and share my discussion with Marc. So today I'm joined by Marc Washington. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Catherine.
Yeah. And maybe just to get started, could you tell the audience, who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Marc Washington. So I am the founder and CEO of Supergut, which is a gut health nutrition business. I've actually been in the space of consumer health and wellness and essentially all things better for you. It's like my own personal thing. I try to lead a healthy life and very conscious of, the way I move my body, what I put into my body, et cetera. But, my real career and my personal passion is helping other people to lead healthier lives that empower them with better control and, health and happiness and all that goes together. And so I've done that as an executive throughout most of my career at larger food and beverage and supplement and fitness companies before starting Supergut.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And we talked a little before we started recording that I really love the idea of supplements and of adding things to your life instead of just taking them away. So I'm really excited about diving into some of that here.
Absolutely.
Because the people who listen to my show are people who struggle with binge eating, primarily binge eating disorder, bulimia, and other issues with overeating and just feeling out of control around food. So, when we're doing these things and these unhealthy behaviors surrounding food, there is detrimental effects on our digestive system, on our gut health. So I'm really hoping, you can help shine a light on some of that and how we can take some measures to correct that, which benefits our overall physical health and mental health. So
absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm excited to dive in. The overall subject is something that I'm passionate about and know a bit about, and specifically through the lens of gut health, which provides kind of a new lens into health and mental state and happiness and so forth. So yeah, very excited to dive in.
Yeah, maybe we could start with, can you explain what is the gut-brain axis and how that applies to gut health and mental health?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start even one step back about kind of what I mean when I talk about gut health.
Yeah.
And then we could talk about like the gut brain connection, right? I mean, so because gut health is becoming more prominent these days, more people are becoming familiar and talking about, which is a fantastic thing. And the reason is because the science has come a long ways to really help understand how significant of a role your digestive tract, like literally your large intestine and your gut, plays in overall health. It literally is like foundational for overall health, like physiological health, like your metabolism, the way you manage weight and cravings, blood sugar, blood pressure, but also mental health as well, right? And so this is where the gut brain connection comes in. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Many people are actually referring to your gut, and called your gut microbiome, like the trillions of bacteria that live in your gut, as like your second brain, right? Because of that direct connection. It is a bi-directional connection between your gut microbiome and actually your brain. Like literally, like there's communication that and signals that go from what's happening in your gut to your brain, and then vice versa, what's happening mentally in your life, in your head, actually have an impact on what's happening in your gut as well, right? And so that's what this gut-brain connection is this bi-directional relationship between your gut and your brain. It makes sense when you think back to getting butterflies in your stomach when you're nervous, or like my personal life, one of the periods in which I was the most stressed was also the period in which I experienced some serious digestive issues as well, right? And so it makes common sense, but now the science is catching up with something that we kind of feel is that there's this deep connection between gut and your brain. Yeah. And to take it one level further, right? And so to validate this, one of the key drivers of like your mental state of well-being is all these neurotransmitters, right? I mean, you hear about things like dopamine and serotonin and so forth that have a significant impact on your mental health and anxiety and depression and so forth. Well, guess where most of those neurotransmitters are actually produced? Yeah. They are actually produced in your gut microbiome, believe it or not, like literally. And so things like dopamine and serotonin are largely produced in your gut, right? And so that just goes to show you just how significant of a role that the health and the state of having a well-balanced, a strong foundation in your digestive tract, in your gut, how important of an impact that can and does have on your mental state and your overall well-being as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the connection of some of these mental issues like anxiety, depression that go along with eating disorders in a lot of cases, there's kind of a link, and that link is not 100% understood. But I feel like what you're saying is a part of that. I mean, for sure, there's no way that you can, restrict food and eat massive amounts of food and make yourself throw up, like it was in bulimics and purging, and not have effects on your gut health, which then in turn affect your mental health. So this is definitely one piece of what my audience may be dealing with at this point. And I think a sad part is that if this happens to you, you think, oh, I'm mentally broken and I have to figure all this out and maybe get on medication. And of course, there's a place for that as well, but a lot of these issues could be stemming from your gut health. And absolutely. So I really appreciate all of that.
Yeah, no, and one of the fascinating things, I completely agree with everything you said, Catherine, is that the gut is actually helping make that connection between the physical and the mental, right? So there is like this scientific, and it's within your body, that there is this connection between the way you're feeling and your health and kind of what you eat. And the gut really is that connection between that physical aspect and the mental aspect as well, which is really fascinating to show just how much that these are connected between. You can't just separate them and say, like, I'm physically healthy, but mentally I'm having challenges, or mentally having challenges, but physically, like, they are intrinsically connected. And it is largely through the gut microbiome that is the connection between the two. So yes, if you can work on one, it can have a positive impact on the other, but it also goes the other way. Like if you are, struggling and doing things that can negatively affect like your digestive system, right? With how you're eating, what you're eliminating, what you're not getting enough of, that can also have a negative effect on your mental state as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I try to promote to people that you're healthy, like your body is fundamentally healthy, but there just might be some things you need to do to supplement yourself or to, work on issues that are leading to this. But like, I don't want people to think that they're broken and something's totally wrong with them.
Do it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm fully of that same mindset. It's actually a big part of my motivation and inspiration for starting the company was to try to create more of a feeling of empowerment, right? Because it just was really bothers me, and I think it's one of the big issues leading to a lot of the health challenges we have in this country and abroad, is this lack of feeling like you have control, right? That it's completely out of your control. There's nothing you can do. And so you're dependent on external factors, on medications, on everything else, versus you have this amazing system. It's called your body, right? And Mother Nature has figured a lot of things out. Like, we just have to help it along, right? And find ways that we can help you help yourselves. And so this whole concept of empowerment is a big thing that really moves me. And it frankly was a big part of why I started the company.
Yeah. I'd love to get into like, what can we do, ways that we can help promote our gut health, and which then also in turn helps our mental health, without any sort of like restrictive diet. I mean, that's like a big thing for me, is like, people need to nourish their bodies. They want to figure out what we can add to our life. So, maybe we could start diving into some of those things we can do to empower ourselves to take charge of our gut health. Yeah,
absolutely. So this is very much where I've focused quite a bit of time and research, especially over the past couple of years, when realizing just how foundational your gut was to your overall health and mental state of well-being. So the question was, so what can we do then? And I'm also a big believer in the concept of functional foods, or sometimes called like food as medicine, right? As just a way to empower us with better control of our bodies. And yes, there are diets and lots of focus, and I call it like the health 1.0 approaches, all focused on restriction, right? Just about taking things away. And yes, you got to be really smart about some things that are not, helping you along. But I think health 2.0, and this topic, is more about what do you need to be getting more of, right, into your diet, that you're making sure that you're actually feeding your body, and in particular, your gut, the things that it needs to keep you healthy. And we need to spend way more time focused on what nutrients, in particular from a food and supplement standpoint, what nutrients that you need to be getting more of into your diet to maintain a healthy gut and overall health and happiness. And so when looking into that, like the very first thing, and this is where we focus at Supergut, it's probably not a surprise, is when you look at what it takes to have a healthy gut, what is really missing is your gut and the trillions of microbes that live there. They are starving with like the way that, the Western diet and the way that we eat. And it's because of the lack of what are called prebiotics in our diets. So what prebiotics are is essentially the food for the good bugs in your gut. It's what they consume to keep them growing and to keep us healthy and happy. Prebiotics are largely found in fiber-rich foods, predominantly plant foods. So veggies, fruit, whole grains, legumes, oats. These things are high in fiber, and most plant-based foods that have high in fiber have a prebiotic effect, which means that they effectively feed the good bugs in your gut. Now, the issue is, as I was saying, in our diets, almost none of us get enough prebiotics in our diet. Like the stats say that literally 5% of adults in the US get the minimum amount of fiber in our diets every day. So like none of us, like literally none of us do, right? And that is the food that nourishes a healthy gut. So that's a humongous gap. And it's the biggest thing that I think we all need to be doing more of, is getting more prebiotics, largely through fiber, into our diets. And that's obviously what we try to do, is try to make it super easy, convenient, and tasty to get prebiotics into your diet so that you can close that fiber gap, feed the good bugs in your gut, and keep a healthy foundation for health, that gut, which helps create an overall better foundation for health.
That makes a lot of sense, and making it enjoyable too. I mean, I always try to promote to people to enjoy your food,
Hugely important. Yeah, no, it's actually, so I come from the space of health and wellness and food and beverage, and, in particular on the functional food side and supplements, a lot of folks that are so inclined, like understand that we need to get these nutrients in, aren't necessarily attuned to the fact that at the end of the day, it is food, it's nutrition, it's something that you should enjoy, right? Mm-hmm. And so to actually, there's no such thing as a magic pill, so to speak. And so anything that's going to have effect needs to be part of a habit and kind of incorporated into your normal routine over time. So in order for that to be impactful, it not only needs to be like functional, right? But it has to be enjoyable too, right? I mean, it's got to be something that people are going to actually look forward to make it easier to say yes to as opposed to say no. So I personally believe, and we as a company very much focus on like the sensory appeal, like making it accessible, convenient, dare I say even craveable, like the kind of things that someone would enjoy, even if it didn't have like this really gut healing function added to it. Now it does, but we just make it sure that they really, really tasty, like our shakes and our bars, like to really spend a lot of time on that because we want to make it enjoyable. We want to help, create a healthy habit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned the word craveable, and that kind of brought me back to something you said earlier about your gut microbiome or the good bugs being starving. And to me, I've learned that can create food cravings, like abnormal food cravings, and contribute. I don't think in my books, I talk a lot about this. I don't think that's like the cause of binge eating, but sometimes if you're having abnormal cravings, you're following them, you're thinking, oh, I've failed, I might as well binge. It can kind of perpetuate the cycle to have these abnormal cravings.
No, it absolutely can. It's like this vicious cycle, right? I mean, because there's both a direct effect, right, in your gut, like when you aren't feeding the good bugs, the things that, they need. And when you are feeding, call it the bad bugs, the things that they like, which are, typically things that are generally not as healthy for you. So digestible carbs, lots of sugar, et cetera, that does create a direct kind of craving, so to speak. If you haven't trained your body to want the things that are going to keep it healthy. And so it's kind of this learned behavior that your gut actually is attuned to, right? And so it definitely does result in cravings. But there's also an indirect effect as well. There's this vicious cycle of when you are having bad things, not enough of the good things, it's back to this gut-brain connection that creates this desire for then in the future to have more of that. So it's getting you from both ends when you're not feeding your gut the things that it wants and needs, and therefore training your body to crave the good things. You're doing the opposite. So yeah, definitely as a vicious cycle.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I talk a lot in my books about habits, like brain-based habits and breaking the habit and deconditioning the brain. But as science comes along, you can't ignore the physiology of it. And it's almost like training the gut brain to crave these things over and over, if that makes sense. It does. That's a habit too.
It does. And actually, you bring up a point, and this actually circles back to where we started at the outset, just this whole concept of my belief, and fortunately the science proves it, just how your body is wired in a way that can be empowered, that can keep you healthy, and that, the food and nutrition, what you put into your body, being an important element of that.
So we talked about kind of what you can add as far as prebiotics. Like what other things do you recommend people add to their life to heal the microbiome?
Yeah. So another topic, what actually most people go to when you think of gut health, most people immediately think of, oh, that means I need to take more probiotics, right? And so what probiotics are intended to do is to add more live, good bugs into your gut. Mother Nature's figured a lot out. You already have trillions of good bugs in your gut, and probiotics can be helpful. The reality is many of them aren't as effective as what they are intended to, at least in the current form in pills, et cetera. What I have come to, and this is actually informed by some of the gut health experts, including our chief medical and science advisors, a gastroenterologist, when he talks to his patients about probiotics, he tends to recommend more fermented foods as a healthy source of probiotics that's more natural and more likely effective. So things like kimchi and yogurt and kefir and other forms of fermented foods that do have live microbes that actually do help create sort of diversity in your gut microbiome. He recommends those more so than a lot of the over-the-counter probiotics, which is a little bit more hit or miss as to whether or not they can be that effective. So that's one area, like fermented foods and the probiotics that are in them is another thing you need to get into your diet. Another thing that's proven beneficial are polyphenols, right? And so what polyphenols are is essentially the nutrients that make, certain fruits very dark in their color. And they also have a very positive beneficial effect on your microbiome. Some of them actually have a prebiotic effect, meaning they also help contribute to feeding the good bugs in your gut. So think like blueberries and grapes, and I think even raspberries have kind of healthy amounts of polyphenols in them as well. So that's also quite beneficial for your gut. The other areas that tend to go to are not all just diet related. There's actually lifestyle related aspects that are tied to your gut. And this kind of goes back to the gut brain axis, right? And so things like getting outside, and physical activity and things that help you overall physically and also mental clarity, that helps you kind of improve the health of your gut microbiome as well. Another area is just around like meditation and things that can help you create a good mental state of calm and well-being. Given this bidirectional relationship with your gut, that also has a positive impact on your gut microbiome. And then one other area that our gastroenterologist advisor says is literally like being out in nature, right? And getting dirty and having pets and things of that nature, right? Because your gut is also connected to your immune system, right? And so you actually build up a resilient and healthy gut microbiome by exposure to the environment, exposure to pets, and being out and about in the world and rolling around in the dirt every once in a while, right? That actually helps build up your immune response. And that also helps contribute to a healthy gut microbiome. So those are some of the things that kind of beyond nutrition, even just lifestyle oriented, that have a direct or an indirect connection to the health of your gut.
Yeah. And I love when people say that, because it makes me feel like not such a bad mother for letting my kids play in the dirt.
Roll around in mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm helping their gut health. Yeah, that's all super helpful. One thing I think that also relates to eating disorders and people who have these struggles with food is it's super important for them to eat enough, but sometimes there's issues with absorption. Like they're not digesting properly, therefore not absorbing the nutrients. And then, still maybe feeling like they're starving because they're not absorbing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not an expert in this space, but I do know that there is a direct connection between the health of your gut and effective absorption of food and energy for your gut. And then that vice versa is also true. Like when you don't have a healthy, balanced gut microbiome, and when you have things such as your gut doesn't have tight junctions in the walls, that leads to less healthy absorption. And frankly, it also leads to things that are supposed to stay in your gut, because your gut has good things and bad things in it, and things that are supposed to stay. When those junctions aren't tight, it actually can allow things to leak out. And so many times these are bacteria, frankly, viruses that you don't want floating around, in your bloodstream. And so that also is tied to the health of your gut and healthy nutrient absorption. I do know other nutrients like digestive enzymes, et cetera, are important in the process of breaking down food. But like I said, I'm not an expert, in the space. So
yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you weighing in there. And I always recommend, if people do have digestive issues, do see a gastroenterologist. But I think the underlying message that you're saying is there are things you can do in your daily life to help improve your gut health, which also helps improve your mental health. Yeah. And I love that you also make it easy for people, because I think it's so overwhelming. Like there's so many things to do, and it can be hard to eat well.
Yeah, it can. And it's one of the challenges of this space. Listen, I know and love this space of consumer health and wellness and food and beverage and supplements and all things better for you. Like I'm really passionate about this space. I think the industry in whole has done a lot of good, but I also believe that we make it very, very difficult, because it's like, what do you listen to when you've got all the different messages coming at you from all different angles? And sometimes conflicting, right? I mean, it's like you should be eating all veggies, and then you've got the carnivore diet, and then you've got fats bad for you. No, healthy fats are good for you. No, you've got and so you literally get these messages coming from all different directions, and it really becomes confusing and paralyzing, right? To many people. And so I do think about how do we simplify, right? Yes, clearly we want to go deep, and it's complex, right? And so that's one thing that's very clear. And every individual is different. And so different people can have different reactions, but there are some overarching truths that affect the vast majority of us that I think we need to focus in on. And that's kind of how my approach is. Okay, let's keep it simple. For our message is, prebiotics are key. None of us are getting enough, so let's get more prebiotics in, right? And let's make it easy to do so. Right? Let's just hammer that home, and let's not get caught up in the specifics or being overly restrictive about you must follow this diet, you must not ever have this thing, you must not, like to be super restrictive and frankly judgmental in a way. I like to have an approach that's significantly more accommodating and that is not overly restrictive, that kind of can fit into your life, because I just don't believe in that. One, in that general restrictive approach. And secondly, I don't think that it's a one size fits all solution either. So yeah, we try to simplify things.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, sometimes all the time, simple is the best strategy for sure. I mean, I love this idea of just feeding the good bugs and getting the prebiotics. It's super helpful. And I hope that, everyone will look into your products. I'm definitely going to. I love supplements, because I have such a busy life and I have 4 kids and it's hard to get enough that I'm always looking for supplements. So this is something I'm super excited to try as well.
Good.
And do you have any final words for people?
I think we've covered most everything. Yeah, if I can say anything, is get more prebiotics, get more fiber in your diet, and that solves a lot of things in your health for a healthy gut and a healthy life.
Yeah, for sure. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, the best place is our website. So it's at supergut.com. We also provide a fair amount of information and education on our site, kind of similar to some of our topics today. It's like, why does this matter? What are prebiotics versus probiotics, right? And so there's a fair amount of information on our site. You can also check us out across social media. And so we're very active on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter as well. So it's at Supergut is the best place to find us there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. This has been very helpful. I appreciate you joining me today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Catherine. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for being here for this conversation. I hope it helps you feel like having a healthy gut is doable and something that will benefit you on so many levels in your life. I want to let you know that I'm not affiliated with Mark in any way as far as the supplements that he sells, and I have not promoted any specific products on this show. It's up to you to talk to your doctor about determining what's best for you based on your unique needs. But as I said during this conversation, I do believe that adding foods or supplements or vitamins into your life that can benefit you is a much better approach than taking foods away. Mark reached out to me about having this science-based conversation, and I thought it was a great idea. And after we talked, I did buy his prebiotic fiber mix because I do think this is something that's missing in my own life. And although it's only been a short time of me taking it, I'm really enjoying it. So I just wanted to give you that update. Before I end the show today, I want to remind you about the 2-hour course event that I mentioned in the beginning of the show that will take place on Zoom on July 17th from 8 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, during the first hour of this event, I'm going to break down each of the 8 lessons from the Brain Over Binge course, which will enable you to quickly absorb the material and begin implementing it immediately. In the second hour, you'll have the opportunity to ask me any questions that you have in order to gain clarity on anything you're struggling with. You will also receive a video of the 2-hour course, which you can use for inspiration or a concise review anytime you need it. If you're already a member of the Brain Over Binge course or the Brain Over Binge group, you get a discount for this event, and you can learn more about that at brainoverbinge.com/webinar. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I hope to see you on July 17th for the 2-hour course, and until then, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.